Number 10. Willow. This is the version of Mantis that exists in DC Comics. No, I'm not kidding. Mantis was created by Steve Englehart and Don Heck, and when Englehart left Marvel to go work for DC, he took his creation with him. Sort of. I mean, obviously Mantis never really left Marvel. She got written out for a while as she was off being the baby mama to a cosmic messiah who actually recently came back in comics, the being known as Sequoia, or simply Koya, who attempted to destroy Earth and defeat the Skrull-Kree Alliance as leader of the Kotati in Marvel's Empire event a few years back. But she would eventually return. However, while Marvel would keep their own version of that character, Englehart would also create a version of her for DC, known as the alien being named Willow, basically the Mantis of DC's Justice League of America from Earth 1. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to let us know that you love us by clicking that like. Number 9. First Guardians team. While some wouldn't consider them to be an alternate team based on the fact that they themselves are technically the original team, by modern standards, you could argue that they are an alternate. After all, Andy Lanning and Dan Abnett, with an assist from James Gunn in terms of the MCU depictions, are basically the creators of the modern day Guardians, the version of the team that inspired the Guardians that we have in the MCU. However, before the 2008 team was introduced, we had these folks, who made their first appearance back in the 1960s. Technically, they're also from an alternate reality and not Earth 616, hailing from the futuristic alternate reality of Earth 691 and the year 3000. The original team made their first appearance in Marvel Superheroes issue number 18. Their roster initially included Vance Astro, Martin X Tanaga, Captain Charlie 27, and Yondu Udanta. Number 8. Comic strip. The Guardians of the Galaxy even assist in the famous Spider-Man comic strip, or at least Rocket the Raccoon does. His comic strip alternate self ended up being one of the allies of Spidey, teaming up with him to save Albuquerque, New Mexico from famed Guardians villain Ronan the Accuser. If you don't remember Ronan, allow me to refresh your memory. He was played by Lee Pace in the original Guardians of the Galaxy film, where he was revealed to be working for Thanos and ended up attacking Xandar before the Guardians of the Galaxy managed to form in order to protect Xandar and defeat him. Spider-Man and Rocket didn't initially hit it off in this strip. As most superhero team-ups generally start in the comics, they started out as adversaries, but initially realized they were both fighting on the side of good, and so they decided to team up to take Ronan on. Number 7. Major Victory. Major Victory is also known as Vance Astro, or Major Astro, while he has a counterpart on the Earth 616 reality who is known as Justice. The Vance Astro of Earth 691 from the original Guardians team actually existed before his main continuity counterpart, so he could actually be considered more the original version of that character than even the main continuity version of that character. Vance Astro was a member of the US Air Force who ended up becoming an astronaut, one of the first astronauts to be shot into space. He was sent up in suspended animation, but by the time he arrived at his destination over 1,000 years later, it turned out others on the planet had basically beaten him to colonizing it. Ah, shucks, don't you hate when that happens? Still, Major Vance Astro set out to record the planet's flora and fauna, as was also part of his mission, one of the parts that he could still obviously complete. He'd run into Yondu, fighting him initially, but later befriending him, and then the two would come together to form part of the original roster of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Major Victory has psionic powers that are actually mutant in origin. He also has a striking look with his suit, which also apparently protects him from rapidly aging. Yeah, if he ever takes his suit off, he's just like, ah! Aging. Number 6. Baby Groot. I mean, I love Baby Groot, but he's also one of the oddest members of the Guardians team. Obviously, this version of Groot was designed with merchandise for the franchise in mind, as Baby Groot is by far like the cutest member of the team and one of the cutest things that has ever existed, I think, on planet Earth. But even Baby Groot is still Groot, and it should also be noted that while adorable, he also just straight up murders a lot of people by growing right through them. Kinda makes him even more awesome, and definitely more weird that he's so little but also so deadly. Baby Groot only existed in the MCU for a short time, appearing in Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy before growing into Teenage Groot. Comic book versions of the pint-sized Groot also appeared in the 2017 series I Am Groot and in the Reality of Earth 415, aka the Future Fight universe. universe. Possibly there are even more comic book versions of Baby Groot, but these are the only ones that I know of, so if you know about more versions of him, just put them in the comments and we can all read all the versions of Baby Groot. Number 5. Angela. Angela is a weird but ultimately very cool character. She has had a long history when it comes to comics that actually started even before she showed up in Marvel. Initially, she started out in Spawn, where she was an enemy of Spawn due to her being an angelic Hellspawn slayer. However, Neil Gaiman fought for the rights to his work on Spawn and basically ended up as such winning back the rights to Angela. He then sold that character to Marvel Comics, and she ended up making both appearances in Gaiman's own Marvel alternate Earth of 1602, as well as the main continuity, where she was basically established as Thor's lost sister. In a weird turn of events, Angela now has an established history with the Guardians of the Galaxy team, being considered an ally, friend, and at one point even a member. They accompanied her on her first trip to Earth. She helped them fight against Iron Man during Civil War II. They helped her to get her demonic baby sister, who also of course is Thor's baby sister, to the safety of heaven, and at one point also fought to free her when she was in prison. So yeah, they have this weird long relationship that I'm like so here for. Kind of random, but also Angela is also quite cosmic, so I guess not so random, because everyone that's from Asgard is both like magical and cosmic when you think about it. Best of both worlds. Number 4. Drax. Even though he's considered one of the most famous members now, especially thanks to the success of the Guardians team via the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Drax is still a super weird character. Even more so in the comics. Let me explain. His backstory is that he was actually a human living on Earth who was a musician. He was traveling back from a performance one night with his family in tow who had come to watch him perform when they ended up being attacked by Thanos. Kinda like a wrong place, wrong time deal here. Thanos in his ship just kinda happened to show up near the lone road that they were driving down in the desert. Not wanting anyone to see him, he attacked and seemingly killed the family, except he didn't really kill them because some of them survived. The father, Arthur Douglas, who we now know as Drax, and daughter, Heather Douglas, were both saved by Thanos' father, Mentor, who felt bad for basically what his son had done and was like kind of keeping tabs on him at the time. He attempted to make amends by giving them new life, with Heather traveling to Titan, where she was raised and would become the hero Moondragon, and Arthur's spirit being saved and put into a new body which had superpowers, becoming known as Drax the Destroyer. So he no longer really looks like Arthur Douglas at all, but technically he has Arthur's spirit. Number 3. Ant-Man. Ant-Man is just a kind of random pick for the Guardians of the Galaxy team, but we love Ant-Man, so I'm fine with him being a member in the end. I just love Scott Lang, he's such a fun guy. For the purpose of this list, by the way, when I do say Ant-Man, I am talking about Scott Lang, not Hank Pym or the infamous Eric O'Grady. Scott Lang ends up joining the all-new, all-different Guardians of the Galaxy team, which I will say has quite a lineup when it comes to the members and allies of the team. This kind of seems like a pretty cool book, actually. I haven't read All New, All Different, but I feel like now I need to after doing some research on it for this list. Ant-Man actually ends up on the team after stowing away on their ship because he wanted to leave planet Earth. The Guardians find him out, but basically respond to his stowaway attempt by simply inviting Lang to join the team. Number 2. Rocket. Rocket is somehow even more weird of a character in the comics as well in comparison to the MCU, which like, Rocket is a really weird character, so how can it get weirder? Let me tell you about it. Although even by the MCU standard of Guardians, he's probably one of the weirdest team members. Rocket Raccoon looks exactly like a Terra-based or Earth raccoon, but claims not to be. When it comes to the MCU, we mainly know that he is a victim of intense experimentation, having been, and I quote, torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster. It is believed that Rocket had his intelligence greatly improved and as such was made sentient. However, due to the traumatic nature of the experimentation, Rocket also seemingly developed a chaotic personality. In the comics, Rocket is actually a hero from another planet, where he and other animals were experimented on and given sentience by robots. The robots had been charged with looking after basically mentally unwell humanoid aliens that lived there, definitely, and wanted to escape this indefinite task, giving the animals on the planet intelligence so that they could basically replace the robots, who then could basically just peace and go build their own world and home on the far side of the same planet. Rocket was one of these animals. Toys were also essential to keeping the patients on the planet calm and in good spirits. And the patients on this planet, by the way, are referred to as loonies, which pretty problematic, but anyways, we'll just keep going on and pretend that didn't happen. But civil unrest between the animals would eventually lead to an all-out toy war between animal-run toy production tycoons and companies. Number 1. Agent Venom. Not necessarily a weird character, just someone who feels pretty weird on this team, especially considering how his involvement with the team kinda all went down. Agent Venom is Flash Thompson. A specific identity for Flash, Agent Venom was the name Spider-Man bully turned ally Flash Thompson took when he merged with the Venom symbiote. I guess Venom is pretty cosmic, so sure, but Flash certainly is not cosmic. He's very street level as a person, or at least he wasn't cosmic prior to him joining the Guardians. Flash joined the team and went along for a ride to Clintar, where the Venom symbiote reconnected with the Hive and basically was purified. And outside of that storyline, he really didn't do too much while on the Guardians team, which is kind of a waste of a character who is as powerful as Agent Venom. And then I'm pretty sure after that he was like, I'm gonna travel space and be a knight. And yeah, it's a weird time. Number 10. Rocket Raccoon. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't put Rocket on here, especially after Volume 3. Rocket Raccoon isn't quite as impressive as his Marvel Cinematic Universe counterpart, but he's still up there for me. And honestly, I feel like his intelligence is higher than what his Marvel fandom wiki says. They have him at a 3, but I think even in the comics, he's actually worthy of a higher number than 3. He's deserving of, I would say, at least a 5 myself. I will say though that in the MCU, he is much more of a super genius than he is in the comics, and I mean, that's also why I love MCU Rocket too. But still, in the comics, he is known for being quite capable when it comes to building and understanding space tech and weaponry, in addition to being an impressive pilot who can fly just about any spaceship he comes across. What I think is most impressive when it comes to Rocket though, is the fact that he actually becomes a leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy team, proving his capabilities as both a strategist and a team leader. Rocket takes over when Star-Lord steps down after some other responsibilities cause him to step away from the team for a bit of time. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you also love Guardians of the Galaxy, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Cosmo. If there is anything that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has taught me, it is that all the Guardians are, in their own way, extremely powerful. Cosmo included. Cosmo was a Russian space dog who was sent up to outer space as part of a Soviet space program. In the films, Cosmo is a female dog, and in the comics, Cosmo is a male dog, so I'm gonna be kinda using lots of pronouns here, but both versions are much more powerful than you might expect. In the comics, it is thanks to cosmic radiation that he gained his telekinetic and telepathic powers. A little warning here to skip ahead to the next point at this time if you want to avoid some minor spoilers for Guardians Volume 3. In the latest and final Guardians film in James Gunn's trilogy, Cosmo demonstrates how truly powerful she is when we see her use telekinetic powers to hold an entire massive spaceship in place. Not only is Cosmo a good dog, but she's also one of the most powerful dogs as well. I gotta say, I was wowed. Number 8. Moondragon. I'm still broken up about Moondragon being left out when it comes to the MCU Guardians team, but I'm hopeful that one day we may still get to meet her at some point, somewhere in the cinematic universe, and that she's still somewhere out there for us to find. I was really hoping for Drax's sake that we'd get a family reunion with the two of them, but I guess that's not happening right now. Moondragon, for those who are unfamiliar, was once Heather Douglas, the daughter of the man who would become Drax the Destroyer. In the comics, both of them were from Earth and were actually nearly killed when Thanos appeared there. Mentor, Thanos' father, felt bad for the damage his son had wrought and attempted to basically revive the family. While Heather's mother was not able to be saved, both her father, Arthur, and she herself were. Heather was reborn as Moondragon and was raised on Titan from that day on by the Shaolorn monks. As Moondragon, she has powerful psionic abilities, and she could even turn herself into a giant space dragon. I don't know if we've seen her do that for a while, but it might still be a thing she can do, so watch out. Number 7. Original Star-Lord. When Star-Lord first appeared in the comics, he was a very different character. He initially joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy original roster, but wasn't yet the version of Star-Lord that we have become used to based on Chris Pratt's depiction of the character in the MCU, which in turn was inspired of course by the 2008 Guardians of the Galaxy version, which greatly saw a revamp to his character and the whole team. This version of Star-Lord made his first appearance in Marvel Preview issue number 4 and was still still known as Peter Quill, but with a very different look than his modern version. He also hailed from a different reality altogether, the Earth of 791, so while being the original version of this character, he also technically is an alternate in terms of him not hailing from the comic book main continuity of Earth 616 that we've come to consider as the main reality of Marvel today. Number 6. Sinjin Quarrel. Who is Sinjin Quarrel? Well, the second Star-Lord. Yep. Before there was Peter Quill of Earth 616, but after there was Peter Quill of Earth 791, in the in-between times, if you will, there was Sinjin Quarrel. Sinjin Quarrel was the Star-Lord of the 90s and had a look very much inspired by his original 1975 counterpart. Sinjin made his first appearance in Star-Lord issue number 1. He ended up becoming the new Star-Lord thanks to the previous Star-Lord's ship. Yeah, the original Star-Lord actually had a sentient ship. This ship had been separated from Peter for 12 years at this point, and so she recruited and helped Sinjin to become the new Star-Lord in Peter's absence. Number 5. Anime Team. Yeah, if you don't know, Marvel has anime, and I've actually heard it's pretty decent. I watched the beginning of an episode involving Iron Man the other day, and I actually really enjoyed the look and feel of the anime, so this is definitely something I need to revisit, the whole Marvel anime world. I think some of the full episodes may even be up on YouTube if you're interested and curious about them. One of the anime-inspired series that was created to push Marvel's universe and characters more into the Japanese market was the show Marvel Disc Wars, The Avengers. In this series, the Guardians of the Galaxy do appear. Disc Wars, by the way, is basically like what would happen if you took Pokemon and just like mashed it up with Marvel comics. Marvel heroes basically become trapped in these things called discs, and they require the help of children to free them from their Pokeball-like containers by using special bio codes to like open them up. Okay. But honestly, think of the merchandise potential here, guys. Number 4. Drax the Android. A lot of folks really love the Silver Surfer cartoon despite its short run. For many, this is still one of the memorable introductions they had to Marvel Comics and Jack Kirby's amazing art. Silver Surfer, the animated series, while short-lived, only having 13 episodes, was revolutionary in terms of its production and its design. The series combined both cel-shaded and computer animation, bringing to life Jack Kirby's famous art style. Drax appears in the series but is quite different from his comic book self, instead being an android who ends up becoming a friend to the Silver Surfer. Instead of Drax being a rage-fueled being with the spirit of a human who Thanos killed, brought back to life by Mentor, Thanos' dad, who felt guilty about his son's involvement in the destruction of life, Drax is an android who works with the scientist Mentor, who in this reality is actually Thanos' brother. Also, if you didn't know, yeah, that's Drax's origins in the comics. I know, it's pretty wild. Number 3. Anime Rocket Raccoon. What can I say? I guess Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 really has me in my feels when it comes to Rocket Raccoon. While we already talked about the team as a whole, I really wanted to zoom in here on the anime version of Rocket Raccoon. I just love his whole look in this show. He's got a very like kind of chibi vibe to me, very cute but also feisty. Honestly, I want a plush of the anime version of Rocket Raccoon. That would be so cool. He's so cute. Rocket Raccoon makes his first appearance in Marvel Disc Wars The Avengers Season 1 Episode 24 if you want to get a more animated look at him. He is of course a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy team here, like he is in so many other alternate universes. Despite being literally the cutest, he also hates when people call him cute, and of course he hates being referred to as a rodent, just like the version of the character we're used to seeing on the big screen in the MCU. Number 2. Lorelei. Willow wasn't the only alternate version of Mantis that Englehart would create. He'd also make another version of the character known as Lorelei. This version, however, was from a third publisher. Yeah, after Englehart took Mantis to DC, creating Willow, she got a miniseries there. However, when that miniseries was cancelled, he moved again and created another version of Mantis. He really loves Mantis, so that he could continue her story. I love that there are like 3 versions of Mantis with like 3 different publishers, but that technically her story is continued in like each of these continuities. This version of the character was known as Lorelei. Like the Mantis over at Marvel and the one over at DC, she was expecting an alien baby, and Lorelei's story saw the continuation of her becoming a mother, with this version of the character giving birth to the child that she'd had through 2 other continuities and publishers prior to this. Number 1. Gamora the Wanderer. Gamora also appears in the Silver Surfer animated series. She also is quite different from her comic book counterpart like Drax. This alternate version of Gamora belongs not to the Guardians of the Galaxy team, but instead is a member of a group known as the Wanderers. The Wanderers initially act as antagonists to the Silver Surfer, tracking him down so that they can basically put him on trial for Galactus' crimes. Pretty unfair, really, since Silver Surfer, he just works for Galactus, but I guess, catching Galactus and putting him on trial, as well as, finding a courtroom big enough for him to fit in, would be a much greater, if not completely impossible challenge. So, honestly, fair enough. Number 10. Yondu. Yondu's only showing up on such a low spot on this list because I'm considering this point like kind of a mashup of all three versions. Some are more powerful, some are less. We have the original Yondu of Earth 691, the new Yondu of Earth 616, and of course the MCU Yondu. All are pretty cool characters, but the MCU one is by far the most powerful. It's kind of a combination of all of them too, though, in my mind. Yondu in the MCU is depicted as being a Ravager who has a specialized fin that with his whistling allows him to control his Yaka arrow. In the newest version from the comics from Earth 616, Yondu was exiled from his tribe and ended up deciding to abandon his home world of Century 4, becoming a space explorer and a looter. On the Earth of 691, Yondu has no powers and is simply a skilled fighter and gifted, sort of mystical empath who ends up returning to his home world after serving as an original Guardians of the Galaxy member to raise a family. Number 9. Kitty Pryde. A favorite guest star of mine on the Guardians team is Kitty Pryde, who even stood in as their replacement Star-Lord for a while when Quill was off trying to basically be a ruler of Spartax. Kitty got roped into being on the team when she began a long-distance relationship with Quill. For a time, the pair were even engaged. Kitty joined the team and became Star-Lord after she had received a power boost from the Black Vortex. It was because of this power boost that Kitty was able to save Spartax, phasing it out of an amber encasing. When Quill became ruler of Spartax, this created tension between the pair, as Quill became more and more busy and had less and less time for his and Kitty's relationship. This led Kitty to feel more and more alone, and because of this, she would throw herself more and more into her hero work with the Guardians, and would eventually take up Quill's abandoned mantle of Star-Lord, which I think Quill was also kind of jealous of. Like, he was like, why did you take my mantle? Number 8. Groot. When it comes to strength, Groot is likely one of the most powerful Guardians to ever have been a member. He hails from Planet X, a Flora Colossi who did not get along with the other members of his race and ended up being kicked off the planet, causing him to wander the galaxy. Poor Groot. Groot, previous to joining the team, had already befriended and fought alongside Rocket Raccoon and Star-Lord, so it was a relatively easy transition for him to join the Guardians of the Galaxy team. Because prior to that, he was already basically doing that stuff. Number 7. Star-Lord. While Star-Lord might often get downplayed as actually being one of the weakest members by comparison, at the end of the day, this simply is not true, especially when we're talking about comics, friends. Sure, he might seem like he's just a guy, and to be fair, he kind of is. In the comics, he's not even descended from the godlike planet Ego. Instead, his father is the alien Spartax Emperor Jason. Still pretty impressive, but doesn't grant him any godlike powers. He just kind of gets a boost to his stats because he's half Spartax, half Terran. Longer lifespan, enhanced durability, and a better healing factor than he normally would have. So why do I think Peter Quill is still OP? Because at one point his royal heritage, once revealed, actually allowed him to inherit the throne, although he also kind of won it over. I think there was a vote and he won, allowing him to become king of Spartax for a time, which is pretty powerful, like ruling a whole world and a whole group of people. And he also recently traveled to another world or dimension where he actually did gain godlike powers that he could harness through his element gun. At one point, he uses this newfound power once returning to Earth 616 to blow up a giant symbiote dragon. And I don't know if that other world that he went to was actually in 616. I'm a little foggy on that, so if it was, sorry about that, me missing that part. While the Guardians at the time were needed elsewhere, imagine if Quill had actually been around on Earth during the King in Black event. If he had actually fought that dragon and then I guess we gotta go to Earth, he would have been pretty useful, I imagine, in the fight against Null had he been free. I mean, he blew up an entire symbiote dragon. That's not easy to do. Number 6. Mantis. While she is definitely used in films as more of a support character, the newest film has me convinced that Mantis is actually one of the most powerful Guardians around. Although to be honest, I kind of felt that way about her since I first got to know her and her abilities in GOTG Volume 2. Since then, I've also learned a ton about her character in the comics, and I have to say, Mantis has an interesting and somewhat bizarre history. She is is not only a member of the Guardians, but she was also once an Avenger mainstay as well for a time. In fact, did you know that when Vision and Scarlet Witch were married, Mantis was also married to another Avenger team member? Swordsman! Or rather, a version of Swordsman who after dying had his mind and body possessed by a Kotati, bringing him somewhat back to life. So he's kind of like a plant version of Swordsman. That was a double wedding issue. That was a thing that happened, guys. The two couples got married together side by side at the same time. But, you know, I feel like Vision and Scarlet Witch overshadowed them. They took their thunder away. Mantis was also identified as the Celestial Madonna, who was meant to be the mother to an extremely powerful cosmic being who would bring about great change in the universe. And she did do that with Koya, who is also, of course, part Kotati, because his dad is Kotati Swordsman. Comics are weird sometimes, especially when we talk about cosmic things. It gets weird really quickly. Number 5. Kate Pryde. Y'all know me, I'm a big Kate Pryde fan. Kitty for a while was weirdly the romantic partner of Star-Lord, which to me was weird, but I'm sure some people are super here for it. And even for a time, she was engaged to Peter. They met in space while Kitty was on an X-Men mission and started off as friends who eventually dated long distance because, you know, Peter Quill's out in space and Kitty's on Earth. Kate came to space for a time, initially venturing there to rescue Star-Lord. This was also right around the time that Kitty got a temporary but insane power boost from the artifact known as the Black Vortex, and used her mutant phasing powers to phase all of the planet of Spartax out of an amber encasing to save the planet from the Brood. When Quill was pulled from the team to act as the King of Spartax, she actually took over for him in his role as Star-Lord, joining the team. Although Peter wasn't a big fan of her choice to do so, but she did it anyways, so it definitely happened, and it counts. Number 4. Thor. I didn't mean to make those rhyme, but it just happened that way. When we're talking about Thor here, we're talking about MCU Thor for this point, because our main continuity comic book Thor of Earth 616 has not explicitly joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy, sadly. Although in that world, the Asgardians of the Galaxy are still a thing, but kind of their own thing, and Thor wasn't a member of that team. Although, I think he still worked with them at one point, but he wasn't on the team. I don't think so. Still, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thor definitely did team up with and temporarily join the Guardians team, as was seen in Thor Love and Thunder. When it comes to the comic book version or the cinematic version of the character, Thor is one of the strongest around and is literally at god tier because, well, he's a god, so there you go. Number 3. Wiccan. Definitely one of the strongest people on this list when it comes to his abilities, I gotta say. And possessing the potential, honestly, to be maybe one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel multiverse. Billy Kaplan, Soul-wise, is the reborn son of Scarlet Witch and a powerful magic user like his magical mom. Wiccan not only looks super cool and has the ability to will things into being just by speaking them into reality, but he also usually comes with his amazing partner and husband in tow, Hulkling. Hulkling is now also the Emperor of the Alliance, the combination of both the Kree Empire and the Skrull Empire smack dab together. Likewise, Hulkling was also a member of the Guardians and also honestly deserves his own spot on this list, but there were simply too many powerhouses for me to choose from, so fingers crossed I get to talk about him more on a part 2 because there's a lot of other people that I didn't mention here and I want to mention that. So please share this video so I can do that. Number 2. Adam Warlock. Although the newly born Adam Warlock might not pack as much of a punch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as he does in the comics, even there he's still a force to be reckoned with, I'd say. And that's with him just being born and having his incubation period somewhat cut short. In the comics, Adam Warlock has been alive at this point for considerably longer and is considered to be one of the wisest folks in the universe, or even multiverse at this point, at least a version of him is. Not only has he been a member of the Guardians team, but there's also an alternate version of him who actually became the cosmically powerful and multiversal Living Tribunal, an entity that works to uphold a sense of balance between universes and worlds within the multiverse. The supreme justice, if you will, within Marvel's multiverse. Number 1. Nova. Over the years, Nova has proven himself to be one of the most powerful members of the Guardians of the Galaxy team as well, also taking over as leader for a time. Nova has been the last standing member of the Nova Corps twice over, and has even, despite it being an impossibility according to the World Mind, contained and mastered the entire collective power of the Nova Corps within himself. With this insane level of power at his fingertips, it's actually been implied that Richard Rider is as powerful as half of a fully charged cosmic cube, which puts him, honestly, on a whole other level, because cosmic cubes are crazy.
In at 10, T'Challa. In the year 1988, within the hidden nation of Wakanda, T'Chaka, the ruler, cautions his young son T'Challa against venturing beyond beyond their borders, emphasizing the suffering and devastation that exists in the outside world. However, driven by curiosity, T'Challa defies his father's advice one night and ventures to the outskirts of Wakanda. Unbeknownst to him though, the powerful force field that conceals the nation attracts the attention of Yondu Onoda's subordinates, who mistakenly abduct T'Challa due to the cosmic energy emanating from Wakanda's vibranium meteorite. In space, Yondu then reprimands his crew for snatching the wrong person, but decides to welcome T'Challa nonetheless, recognizing his adventurous spirit. Impressed by T'Challa's exploratory nature, Yondu extends an invitation to join the Ravagers and explore the vast expanse of the galaxy. Fast forward 20 years, where T'Challa, now known as Star-Lord, successfully retrieves the orb from its chamber. However, his actions draw the attention of Korra the Pursuer and two Sakarans who are sent by Roman the Accuser to get the artifact. This is just it's from an episode of What If, you know, the MCU animated series on Disney Plus. So if you want the full story along with Thanos and the rest, be sure you watch that episode because it's good, pretty good. In at 9, Guardians 3000. As the ruler of the dwindling Spartax Empire, Star-Lord of Earth 691 found himself leading the remnants of his war fleet. In a critical turn of events, he was summoned by the Guardians of the Galaxy along with the remaining leaders of the Galactic Council to address a grave situation. This involved the human Gina Drake and a temporal anomaly that reset their family, returning them to the beginning of a war they had previously won. Amidst an unexpected ambush orchestrated by the Brotherhood of the Badoon, Star-Lord courageously fought alongside his fellow Guardians, determined to create an opening for their escape. United by their mission, they braved the chaos and danger together, striving to overcome the odds and protecting their cause. He has a pistol capable of conjuring one of the 4 elements, and Peter Quill of this Earth has also mentioned that he inherited his armor, element, gun, and ship when he became Star-Lord. So it could mean that this isn't really an alternate version of Star-Lord, but rather his descendant. Gina Drake also suggests it as they meet Earth 616 Star-Lord, and it's revealed in Guardians 3000 number 6 that Peter was born on Spartax in 2985. And it ain't Lord Starkill. Peter Quill, known as Lord Starkill in his home universe of Earth 25271, was a notorious space pirate and leader of the Ravagers. He had a personal vendetta against Corporal Carol Danvers, the leader of the rival Zeta flight pirates. Thanos the Just was a wise and noble peacekeeper who had hired Quill to retrieve a displaced reality stone from another universe. Quill laid in wait on the planet of Gaia, anticipating the emergence of Dr. Eve and her MIM unit from an ancient temple with the reality stone, and with his trusty element rifle he skillfully incapacitated both targets from a safe distance and then claimed the stone for himself. During his journey back to the hideout, Quill contacted Thanos, much to the latter's dismay, as he preferred not to be associated with the individuals of Quill's reputation, but upon his return the hideout was suddenly attacked by the Zetas with assistance from Widower. The Ravagers valiantly fought back, managing to restrain the entire enemy team, but in a controversial move, Lord Starkill proposed selling his nemesis and her crew to Thanos to clear his own name. That's definitely a cutthroat move, and you know what, Quill? I respect it. Those are the kind of go-get-em attitudes we need in space. And at 7, Jason. Jason was the only son of the previous Emperor of Spartax, and therefore their sole heir to the throne. He was summoned by his father when the war broke out between the Spartax and the Badoon, and on his way back home he was forced to crash land on Earth, where he fell in love with a human woman named Meredith Quill. The two began a short relationship before Jason was forced to leave to wage war for the Spartax. Meredith would later go on to give birth to his son, Peter Quill. Yeah, that's right, MCU fans. In the comics, Peter's dad is actually Emperor of Spartax and not Ego the Living Planet, which honestly makes more sense given that, you know, Ego is a whole ass planet. But years later, Jason joined the other members of the Galactic Council to declare Earth off limits to extraterrestrial interaction. Once his son defended Earth from a Badoon attack though, Jason sent Spartax soldiers to capture him and his team of Guardians of the Galaxy. However, the Guardians managed to escape and flee. And at 6, Thane. Thane is the secret Inhuman son of Thanos. After a descendant Inhuman tribe ran afoul of Thanos and his army, one Inhuman woman returned home pregnant with Thanos' child. I don't even want to know how that worked. The son of Thanos was convinced by Jason that the X-Men and the Guardians had committed such a massacre in an attempt to remove him from the conflict, thus giving Thane a reason to join his side. After reacquiring the Black Vortex, Thane submitted to it. This increased his power by tenfold. Basically, the Black Vortex is like a mirror-like object that when you see your reflection, it shows you the ideal version of yourself and then turns you into that ideal version. So yeah, this dude's powers increased a lot, turning him into an incredibly powerful villain. As part of his deal with Mr. Knife, Thane then used his cosmically enhanced power to encase the entirety of Spartax in his amber construct. The trapped Spartax would later be traded to the Brood by Mr. Knife in exchange for it taking advantage of their expansion. A freaking cosmically enhanced son of Thanos? Yeah, that's pretty freaking powerful. That's nuts. Halfway through into number 5, Thanos. While usually portrayed as an evil bent villain, many stories have alternately depicted Thanos as having a twisted moral compass and thinking that his actions are actually justified. The character's perhaps best known role came in the 1991 storyline of the Infinity Gauntlet, the culmination of several previous story arcs, which saw him successfully assembling the 6 Infinity Gems into a single gauntlet and then using them to wipe out half the universe's population, including many of its heroes, in an effort to earn the affection of Mistress Death, the living embodiment of death in the Marvel Universe. Yeah, this dude wanted to get it on with death. Although these events were later undone, the storyline has remained one of the most popular published by Marvel, which was also later adapted into the MCU with the Infinity War and Endgame movies, which are the 2 highest grossing Marvel movies of all time, and the 2 highest grossing superhero movies of all time, which only serves to show the absolute power that the Mad Titan has over the Marvel Universe. Plus, he also managed to collect all the Infinity Gems and then wipe out half the universe just to get Lady Death on his dick. So I mean, he's pretty crazy. Or dare I say, mad. In it for Ego. In the MCU, Ego was a celestial, a primordial and powerful being, and the biological father of Peter Quill. A living planet with a humanoid extension of himself, Ego sought to find meaning in his life and, to achieve this end, planned to remake the entire universe via an omnidimensional extinction level event known as the Expansion, using seeds planted on various worlds to terraform them into new extensions of himself, thereby eradicating all other life in the universe but himself. You get it? This process required 2 Celestials, however, so Ego traveled across the universe, siring children on humanoid and alien planets everywhere in an attempt to produce a celestial heir, eventually having thousands of children. Have you seen the show Seed? Yeah, it's like that. Ego hired the Yondu Ravager clan to abduct and transport some of these offspring to his planet, though none of them showed signs of having inherited celestial DNA. So Ego killed them. However, when he learned of a man from Earth who held an Infinity Stone without dying, he knew this must be the celestial son he had with Meredith Quill. But I think the most impressive part about this character is that not only is he a celestial, but he is also the commander from Sky High, meaning that technically Peter Quill is Will's stronghold, and honestly, that's a theory I can get behind. Sky High is a good movie, you should watch it. If you haven't seen it, watch Sky High. Penultimately, in number 3, Zeus. Zeus is a member of the Olympians, a group of humanoid beings that hail from the pocket dimension of Olympus. He was worshipped by the humans of ancient Greece and the Roman Empire. He is supreme monarch of the Olympians, god of the heavens, sky, and weather. Kinda like the 3 Doris Pokemon from Gen 5, from Black and White, Thunderous, Landorus, and Tornadus. Yeah. Zeus was the youngest son of the Titan Kronos, who ruled Olympus and Rhea. The Titans were the offspring of the sky god Uranus and the primal earth goddess of Gaia. Kronos overthrew his father's rule by fatally wounding him, and then the dying Uranus prophesies that Kronos would be overthrown by his own children, which I guess is kinda poetic. As a result of this though, upon the birth of each of his own children, Kronos had them imprisoned in Tartarus, the most despicable section of the extra dimension known as Hades. Yeah, hell. However, appalled by the mistreatment of their children, Kronos' wife Rhea concealed their 6th pregnancy from him and secretly gave birth to Zeus, and then gave the infant Zeus to Gaia for safekeeping. I don't know why I need to explain how a literal god of Olympus is a powerful villain. Like, do I? Do I really need to do that? I don't think so. I should have just said Zeus and then moved on. But ultimately, in number 2, Galactus. Galactus is the sole survivor of the 6th incarnation of the multiverse. Originally, Galactus was a humanoid named Galen, born in the previous incarnation of Earth 616 on planet Ta, a paradise-like world whose civilization is said to have the most advanced of any of the known universe at the time. However, the 6th Infinity Infinity and all its universes were in their final stages of collapse due to the multiversal renewal cycle, being consumed by the abstract entity known as the Black Winter. When the cosmos was going to meet its natural end, Galen was then approached by the embodiment of the Sixth Infinity, the sentience of the multiverse basically, who merged its essence with the mortal Galen, this way giving birth to a new entity that would survive the multiversal renewal, Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. However, the Black Winter also presented an alternate account of these events, saying that Galen's survival was it sparing him, and then turned him into Galactus to mark him as its herald. Galactus possesses the immeasurable power cosmic, and is one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, having near limitless godlike powers, and being considered an omnipotent entity. He's mega OP if he's eaten enough worlds. And that's kinda like me. I relate. And finally, in at number 1, Michael Korvac. Being first introduced in Giant-Sized Defenders number 3 in 1975, Michael Korvac's father was killed due to events surrounding his birth in 2977. He was raised by his mother, but when the solar system he lived on Earth 691 and its colonies became the target for the Brotherhood of Badoon, Michael became a traitor and helped the Brotherhood. However, after a few moments of hesitation, he was cut in half and fused with his computer by the Brotherhood, turning him into a cyborg of sorts. But this seemed to do more harm than good, at least for the Brotherhood, since now Korvac was dead set on killing those who did this to him. So, way to go. At least until the Grandmaster transported him to battle Doctor Strange and the Defenders. Korvac intentionally lost this battle and instead siphoned some of the Grandmaster's power using his new cybernetic abilities, making him even more powerful than before. Eventually, this guy ends up impersonating Kang the Conqueror and the Watcher, and with his ability to siphon power from others, this makes him one of the scariest villains in the Marvel Universe. At least if he was smart about it and didn't get himself killed. He ends up wiping himself out of existence after killing basically all the Avengers and the Guardians though. It's freaking nuts, okay? And it's at Yotat. Yotat overheard 2 brute half-breeds telling his boss that they allegedly killed the Collector and had stolen his weapons collection. Yotat used this information to uncover the weapons cache, and then attempted to trade them to another mob boss in exchange for a membership in his organization. But this mob boss named Diogo had other ideas. He betrayed Yotat, shooting him and then leaving for dead, and then blowing up the weapons depot with Yotat inside. However, somehow he survived the explosion and was actually transformed by it. And when the world was transformed into Battle World for the Secret Wars storyline, Yotat caught up with Diogo at the Sobolski bar on Nowhere. After killing the man who betrayed him, Yotat was confronted by Rocket Raccoon. Rocket attempted to execute him for what he viewed as a murder, only to see that his blast had no effect. Drax the Destroyer then rescued Rocket Raccoon by knocking Yotat unconscious, and then the Nova Corps arrived to take him into custody. However, later on he did defeat the Guardians after a few months, but this guy looks awesome too. Just look at it. It looks badass. And at 9, the Collector. Tannelir Tavan is one of the oldest living beings in the universe. His species at Cygnus X1 was one of the first to evolve after the Big Bang. Death took Tavan as the last surviving representative of his species and then gave him total immortality. Tavan, as well as one of the representatives of each of the first species in the universe, cannot die. These people have associated among themselves to create the Elders of the Universe. However, after his wife Matani died, he learned that one of the factors of his immortality was the will to live, and Matani had lost hers. Tavan then decided that he would not suffer the same fate and looked for a goal to dedicate his life to. He then had a vision, seeing powerful things that would rise, determined to destroy the universe. And he decided to prevent this from happening, and that he would dedicate his life to collecting artifacts and living beings throughout the universe and place them out of danger. Then, after the destruction of the universe, he could repopulate it and bequeath the knowledge of cultures from the past. So he became the Collector to continue being immortal, which is certainly an interesting origin story. And at 8, Ronan the Accuser. In the MCU, Ronan was a radical Kree warlord and former member of the Accusers. In 1995, during the Kree-Skrull War, Ronan worked with Yon-Rogg and the Star Force after the ambush in Torfa to wipe out the last of the Skrull refugees. Ronan and the Accusers were then called to drop warheads on Earth to wipe out the remaining Skrull opposition there, but was forced to retreat when Captain Marvel launched a counteroffensive against the Kree, promising retribution. You will get retribution. Further disgusted by the peace treaty made between the Kree Empire and Xandar, Ronan initiated a new campaign to eradicate the Xandarnians by forging an alliance with Thanos, offering the orb in exchange for the destruction of Xandar. After a long search, Ronan did acquire the orb, but after having seen its true destructive capabilities, betrayed Thanos and chose to take the orb's power for himself. Using this newfound power, he attacked Xandar, only to be defeated and killed by the Guardians of the Galaxy in an iconic dance battle. But honestly, with the power of an Infinity Stone, it's a wonder how he actually managed to lose. But that single stone still made him pretty damn powerful.
Number 7. Nova. Nova has been an on and off again member of the team for some time. The Nova we're talking about today, of course, is Richard Rider. He grew up on Earth and was randomly chosen to become a member of the Nova Corps when he was still a teenager. He has had many adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy and is currently on the roster in the latest series, volume number 6 from 2020. Nova is immensely powerful across the board. Super strong, super durable, super fast. He can heal, emit energy blasts by channeling the Nova Force, and through his connection with the World Mind, has access to a vast knowledge of Xandarian knowledge, making him super smart as well. And friends, before I move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Guardians lists, I know I want to do more for you, please show us some love by giving this video a thumbs up. Hey! Number 6. Cosmo. Cosmo is everyone's favorite psionic space dog, and he is no lightweight when it comes to power levels either. You may recognize this goodest boy from the MCU, where he appeared as an exhibit in the Collector's expansive collection. In the comics, Cosmo joined the Guardians as a supporting character and ally for space adventures way back as early as Volume 2 of the series from 2008, kind of the reboot of the Guardians of the Galaxy, if you will. When dealing with the Cancerverse, he proved how formidable of a hero he was when he swiftly took out a bunch of Cancerverse alternate heroes with one single psionic command. Boom. Number 5. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is likely one of the most powerful cosmic heroes that we have out there, and also for a time ran with the Guardians of the Galaxy. This happened after one of the many times that Carol had lost her memories, or more in this case, I guess, like, lost the emotional attachment to her memories. It's kind of weird. She was still seen as kind of remembering who people were, but remembering something important to her and her love of her friends was a little bit more tricky. She didn't really have that emotional connection to people or to her memories. In order to save New York, she was forced to fly high up into the sky, and because she had a tumor in her brain and was told specifically not to fly as she risked dying at the time, she suffered brain damage that affected her memory. In order to learn more about who she truly was inside, she decided to leave Earth for a time and venture among the stars, eventually joining up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You can check out Carol's cool space adventures and watch her flying high with the Guardians in the 2014 Captain Marvel series, volume number 8, starting in issue 2. Also, for anyone that wants to come at me about how many Captain Marvel series there have been and blame Carol for that, look, Carol didn't even come in until I think about halfway through all of those, so just a heads up. People in the comments always want to come after Carol. I love Carol, so I'm gonna fight for her. Civil War II was not her fault. It was just weird writing, guys. It wasn't really her. Number 4. Starhawk. Starhawk is one of the members of the original Guardians of the Galaxy roster, before they reached mega fame status in the comic book world. But just because some of the older members aren't as well known, doesn't mean they don't deserve to be celebrated or respected. Some of them are evidently very, very powerful. Starhawk is one such Guardian, although not my favorite of the oldest original team members. We still don't even fully know the limits of Starhawk's power, but what we do know is that he has a multiversal knowledge that grants him great insight. He was basically living the same life cycle and using that knowledge way before Moira McTaggart made it cool. It is because of this that he knows so much about the world around him, giving him sort of a precognitive sense. Starhawk is also super strong, super fast, and immortal. Number 3. Thor. Yep, when Thor joined the team in the MCU, he even made reference to another version of the Guardians of the Galaxy roster referred to as the Asgardians of the Galaxy. This is what Thor jokingly refers to the team as in the film, but it's actually also the name of a separate team from the comics. There's a real Asgardians of the Galaxy comic. It's got like a totally different team pretty much, but you should check it out. We don't know in the MCU if Thor will end up staying on as a permanent member of the Guardians, but sometimes the strongest members to this team are the ones that come and go. Thor is one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, definitely in the MCU as well. He even attempted to go toe-to-toe with Null during the King in Black event recently and impressively held his own, even managing to get a hit in where he smashed off Null's jaw. I was like, what just happened? That fight was crazy. We also got to see Storm and Thor team up. So good. Number 2, Star-Lord. Star-Lord typically isn't known for being the most powerful member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, despite the fact that he is one of the most recognizable members thanks to the films and recent comics, and is generally the leader of the team, or is generally depicted as being the leader of the team. However, recently he's got a major power upgrade. While thought dead, it turned out that he had survived the fight against the Olympians and the explosion that had been thought to have killed him. Instead, he was transported to another dimension and another world entirely. There, his element gun seemed to have an everlasting power source, something that would be useful on his return. For Quill, almost 200 years had passed, though of course, probably in part thanks to his Spartax heritage, he looked as though he had barely aged upon his return. Also, maybe time moves differently in another dimension. There's a lot of good explanations for that. His element gun was used to defeat one of Null's symbiote dragons, and he also managed to withstand a mental assault from Null, who tried to drag him and the Guardians into the darkness. Number 1, Adam Warlock. Obviously, Adam Warlock had to make the top of this list. He's one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, and even though we haven't seen him for a while, he's still out there, lurking, with lots of power still to boot, even, without the Soul Stone. Adam Warlock has been capable in the past of manipulating the very fabric of reality. He's been on a god level before. I mean, he still kinda is. When we saw the new Guardians team in the comics, Adam Warlock joined up with them to defeat Ultron, and then ultimately ended up joining the team. Together they set out on a great task to repair the universe.
Number 10, Cosmo. Starting off our list today with the goodest of boys, Cosmo the dog. Cosmo was originally a test animal used by the Soviets during the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States in the 1960s. He was launched into orbit around Earth but drifted a bit off course and found himself in nowhere. And thanks to the exposure of cosmic rays, he developed telepathic and telekinetic powers. Although he doesn't look like much, you definitely shouldn't let your guard down around him, because with these powers he can create shields and deflect energy-based attacks, as well as project mind blast at enemies. He has straight up gone toe-to-toe with Adam Warlock, so he's pretty tough. Cosmo doesn't become an official member of the Guardians of the Galaxy until after the team disbanded after they allied with Thanos, and many of them died. Just before Star-Lord died, he left Cosmos with a task to collect the greatest heroes in the universe to form a band of Annihilators. The team Star-Lord believed was what the Guardians of the Galaxy should have been. Cosmo one by one convinced the Silver Surfer, Gladiator, Beta Ray Bill, Quasar, and Ronan the Accuser to team up and protect the universe together, as was Star-Lord's final wish. Give this good boy story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2008's Nova Volume 4 number 8, or just feel free to skip ahead to his time as a Guardian in 2009's Guardians of the Galaxy number 12. Number 9, Moondragon. Heather Douglas, daughter of Drax the Destroyer, was found by Thanos' father, Mentor, who took her to his homeworld Titan to be raised by the Titanian Shaolin monks in their monastery. While there, Heather studied the Titan's way and disciplines to unlock her latent psychic potential and gained her mental and physical powers. However, she came under the influence of a powerful entity called the Dragon of the Moon, and she believed she had resisted it, which filled her with pride, and she took the name Moondragon as a result. Sadly, it also made Moondragon an incredibly arrogant lady who more than once has tried to quote-unquote fix things by controlling the minds of people. While she's not that bad now, Moondragon still has the ability to rub folks the wrong way. However, she still has a major telepathic power that can be quite valuable to any team. Not only that though, Heather is also a top-notch fighter who's trained with some of the best warriors in the entire galaxy. The fact that she can know how an opponent is going to act aids immensely in a fight. And then also for a time she had the ability to straight up just transform into an actual huge flying dragon, which is so sick, but she seems to have lost that ability somewhere down the road. Moondragon joined up with the team in Guardians of the Galaxy number 12 alongside Cosmo the Space Dog, but only after dying first. During the events of the Annihilation Conquest event, Moondragon is killed when Ultron shoves his arm just through her chest. In order to resurrect her, Phyla and Drax are killed by Mentor so they can travel to the realm of the dead and retrieve her. Phyla is able to save her just in time, and the three return to the land of the living. Moondragon then returns to Nowhere with Phyla and Drax, where she is accepted as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Check out her story for yourself, starting with 1973's Iron Man, number 54. Number 8, Drax. Now speaking of Drax, let's talk about him for a sec. Originally, Drax was a human named Arthur Douglas who was killed alongside his family by Thanos. His spirit was resurrected by Kronos into the body of Drax to become a being powerful enough to take out Thanos. In his new body, he was far superior to a human with the ability to fly, project energy blasts from his hands, he possesses enhanced strength and could heal from pretty much any injury. That being said though, he has shifted many times character-wise over the years, going back and forth between smart and dumb, large and average, all until the Annihilation event, where he was portrayed as smaller but much more intelligent, and that's actually the version that we're all familiar with today. Although he's not as super strong as he once was, he still is powerful and can hold his own against multiple enemies. He still heals very quickly from injuries and has enhanced senses to the point where he was able to sniff out a Skrull imposter. He also now has the tendency to look before he leaps, and in a recent attempt at pacifism, dropped his entire standing as a warrior completely. However, Drax still has to count as a major member of the Guardians who, if pressed to it, will remind people why he's called Drax the Destroyer. Check out his entire story for yourself because it is a great one, starting with 1973's Iron Man number 55.
And it's 7 Gamora. Following the presumed demise of Peter Quill, Gamora donned his mask and assumed the mantle of Star-Lord on Earth TRN-421, taking charge as leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The team consisted of Drax, Groot, Rocket, Iron Man, and Charlie 27. Their mission was to confront the formidable Silver Galactus, who had absorbed the power of the Silver Surfer and become even more ravenous than ever before, and at the Forsaken Gates of Asgard, where the gods were absent, the Guardians faced off against their former teammate Vance Astro, who had become the latest Herald of Galactus. Vance deployed an army of Punisher robots to keep the Guardians occupied while his master targeted their base at Nowhere. Meanwhile, Quill, who was assumed dead, had cleverly faked his demise and taken on the persona of Major Victory, infiltrating the ranks of the Heralds of Galactus to earn the trust of Silver Galactus. So, damn. And it's 6 Nova. Star-Lord and his partner Gamora, both of Earth 94241, were a daring duo with a shared mission to locate the elusive Infinity Stones. Their first successful heist involved stealing the Space Stone from the devastated Nova HQ, which had fallen victim to the Annihilation Wave. Their triumph was short-lived, as they found themselves pursued by the relentless Bacchian clan. In a surprising turn of events, Star-Lord managed to strike a deal with Eve Bacchian, convincing her to purchase the Space Stone in exchange for 3 coveted Nova Stars. Sounds like I'm playing Mario Party. Discovering that their goals were aligned, both parties seeking to rid the universe of the Annihilation Wave as well, the Bacchians allowed Star-Lord and Gamora to join their quest in search of the remaining stones. During their perilous journey, a treacherous betrayal unfolded when their supposed ally Thanos seized the Infinity Stones that they had acquired, and then in the ensuing chaos, a colossal insectoid threat was unleashed, which is pretty freaking nuts and honestly kind of epic. Why would you trust Thanos though? I guess it's an alternate universe, so oh well. Halfway through into number 5, Super Mario. Now this one is kind of a joke, yes, but since Mario was voiced by Chris Pratt in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, technically that makes Mario a Star-Lord variant, right? I mean, a load of Mario games also revolve around stars or include them as some form of currency or whatever the case may be. Super Mario Galaxy revolved around stars quite literally. I mean, like, it was in space. Galaxy kinda needs stars in a galaxy. Luna, who's a character in the series, is a star. Rosalina has the star wand. Mario's main goal in Mario Party is to collect stars, which are highly coveted. He's a Lord of Stars, and given that he's voiced by Chris Pratt, and when in contact with a superstar, Mario gains invulnerability and what is basically celestial adjacent powers, or some would say celestial descendant powers. Yeah, I'm gonna count Super Mario as a Star-Lord variant, okay? And if you want to get mad at me for it, go right ahead. I'm sure plenty of you want to give me a piece of your mind already anyway. In it for Cyborg. After the events on Aveline 4, where Star-Lord's actions inadvertently caused the loss of 350,000 lives while saving millions of others, he couldn't escape the weight of the collateral damage that he had caused. Faced with the gravity of his actions, he made the difficult decision to turn himself in, along with the Fallen One, to the Nova Corps for judgment. The public's opinion of Quill was divided, but he took responsibility for the tragedy. Subsequently, both Star-Lord and the Fallen One had found themselves imprisoned on the notorious intergalactic penitentiary known as the Kiln. It was during this time of confinement that Peter made a significant choice. He opted to undergo his first cybernetic implant, a symbolic gesture of distancing himself from his own humanity, because I mean that's what put him in there in the first place, really. While incarcerated, Peter formed an alliance with Chalk, Gladiator, and Thanos, fearing the immense power of the enigmatic figure known as the Maker. They shared crucial information about her background with Thanos and sought his aid, but the Mad Titan ultimately walked away. But still, he became a cyborg, and that's pretty dope, because, you know, part robot people are awesome, a la Power Rangers Red Ranger. You know, if you know, you know. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Old Man Quill. Prior to Red Skull's rise to power and the downfall of the United States, Star-Lord assumed the role of Emperor within the Spartax Empire. During his time, he entered into a union with Lyssa, who gave birth to their 2 children, Meredith and Jason. Though his responsibilities as Emperor prevented him from joining the Guardians on a critical mission that led to Groot's demise, the decision strained his relationship with the rest of the team. In the aftermath of the rebellion and the subsequent years as Emperor, Star-Lord remained unaware of the events unfolding on Earth. However, everything changed when the colossal Church of Truth launched a brutal assault on his planet, resulting in the tragic loss of his family. So, consumed by grief and despair, Quill lived in seclusion for years, cutting off from the Guardians and the wider universe. Then, a message arrived from the dying Guardians, revealing that Star-Lord represented the last hope to defeat the Church. And I mean like the one that had attacked his planet, not like Cavalry Baptist, you know. But ultimately, and at number 2, Age of Ultron. Star-Lord of Earth 26111 is a valiant member of the Defenders who was enlisted by Tony Stark to safeguard the world from the relentless menace posed by Morgan Le Fay. Alongside his fellow Defenders, he engaged in a fierce battle with Wolverine and the Invisible Woman from an alternate reality, mistakenly believing them to be Skrull imposters. As Tony Stark interrogated the displaced visitors, tragedy struck when Morgan Le Fay launched a devastating assault on New York City. Star-Lord and his fellow Defenders valiantly confronted the sorceress and her formidable forces. However, their heroic efforts came to a tragic end when Morgan Le Fay orchestrated the cataclysmic nuclear explosion caused by colliding 2 of Stark's helicarriers. So I mean, yeah, any old man story you know is gonna be messed up. Old Man Logan, Maestro, Spider-Man Reign. And finally, in at number 1, Will Stronghold. That's right, I found a way to shoehorn Sky High into this list, okay? Will Stronghold is the main protagonist and central character of the Disney Channel original movie Sky High. As the offspring of 2 esteemed superheroes, the Commander and Jetstream, Will carries the weight of their legacy on his shoulders. Inheriting his father's incredible strength and his mother's ability to soar through the skies, Will proved to be quite the formidable student at Sky High. But he doesn't start off with powers. So he's the only kid at a school full of the children of superheroes and villains alike to not have any superpowers, despite having 2 superhero parents who are literally the most famous people on the planet. But over time, Will sheds his shyness and timidness, and he grows more confident and actually gains his powers. Through his journey, he gains popularity as well, but also earns the respect and admiration of his fellow students and even teachers. Will's evolution allows him to stand as a true hero, carving his own path and giving his friends hope, who, by the way, one of them is Danielle Panabaker, who plays Killer Frost on The Flash, but she was playing Poison Ivy in this movie. But the reason I have Will on this list is because the legacy that he's trying to uphold is that of the Commander, played by Kurt Russell, who also played Ego, meaning that within the Marvel multiverse, Will Stronghold is a variant of Star-Lord. You're welcome. I had to do it, okay? I had to. It's true. Will Stronghold is Star-Lord confirmed.
Number 10, Yondu. The Ravager Yondu that we know from the MCU, where he's played by Michael Rooker, is quite different from the one we know in the comics. Here, Yondu Udonta, the original Yondu anyways, was a native Centurion of Centauri 4. He didn't have any powers, but did have his Yaka arrows and his bow. Yeah, in the comics he actually uses a bow to shoot them. Yaka arrows, like in the MCU, are unique in that they can change direction after fired, but only by those native to Centauri 4, who know how to basically use high-pitched whistles to direct and manipulate them once those arrows are fired. Similar to what we see in the MCU with Yondu, but, you know, a little bit different. Yondu on Earth 691 was one of the original members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, joining the team to fight back against the galactic oppression of the Badoon. Once that had been settled, Yondu basically traveled the galaxy with the Guardians, going on all sorts of adventures before retiring and settling down on Centauri 4. In the end, he would be called upon to travel back in time to prevent the ancestor he was named after from making a grave mistake. He became quite close to his ancestor, who of course is also named Yondu. Present Yondu also recklessly fought to protect his ancestor, dying in the process, but also oddly enough inspiring ancestor Yondu to become the historical hero that he was destined to be, and that inspired the naming of present Yondu. It's timey-wimey stuff. Number 9, Star Fox. Star Fox is cosmic, so I guess it kind of makes a little bit of sense when it comes to him joining the Guardians team, but he's also often more associated with the Avengers, or, you know, with Thanos. Star Fox, or Eros, is the brother of Thanos, who is also technically an Eternal. Yeah, weirdly he's attached to a lot of different groups, actually. Both Eros and Thanos are technically part of the group of Eternals that are from Titan. You see, in the cosmos, Earth wasn't the only place where the Celestials manipulated native beings to create their own sub-race of beings known as the Eternals, which by the way is how it all goes down in the comics, although in the movies Eternals are more like kinda like robots, I guess, that were made by Celestials out in space and were simply brought to Earth to monitor, aid, and eventually harvest that planet. Star Fox joins the Dark Guardians team, actually founding it to stop Thanos from being resurrected after he's died. Initially this meant they actually had to hunt down Guardian of the Galaxy member Gamora, who they believed would be used in the resurrection ritual to bring Thanos back. However, it turned out that it was Star Fox that was wanted for that ritual, not Gamora, prompting Gamora to kill her adopted uncle as she too wanted to prevent Thanos' return. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show us some love on another platform, head on over to Facebook where you can give us a like and a follow. Thanks. Number 8. Groot. Groot is definitely one of the weirdest characters like on paper when it comes to the Guardians. He is a sentient alien tree who is known to only speak the words "I am Groot," though often with various different meanings of course behind those 3 words. In the comics, Groot is from Planet X, where there exist other Flora Colossi like him. However, Groot here was known for being an outcast who cared more about the maintenance mammals of that planet than his own tree brethren. As a result of choosing the maintenance mammals over the other Flora Colossi, Groot was exiled from his planet and so set out to explore space, eventually joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. In the first, now retcon comic book appearance of Groot, he was actually a villain, although Tales to Astonish issue number 13 is no longer considered his first appearance. It's been established that the Groot that actually appears there was, I guess, also named Groot, but like another Flora Colossi, so yeah. But initially that's what he was. He was a monster from Planet X. Oh no. It's okay, he's not a monster. We love Groot, right?
Number 7. The Thing. Although Ben Grimm aka The Thing is normally associated with the Fantastic Four, he did spend some time with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and for the sweetest and just most wholesome reason, to fulfill his lifelong dream of being an astronaut. Okay, fine, you caught me, that wasn't the entire reason. Ben did decide he needed a break from Earth during a period of time where Reed and Sue were lost in time, but I swear the other reason is part of it too. Now sadly, Ben's time with the Guardians wasn't too long, as during the second superhuman civil war their ship was accidentally destroyed in a fight, stranding the Guardians on Earth, which kind of forced them to disband for a while. Now in terms of power, the Thing is one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe. He's faced off with the Hulk multiple times and survived, and even once beat him with the help of his friends, and has consistently clobbered the Fantastic Four's enemies time and time again. Aside from his strength and durability though, Grimm is an expert pilot and military tactician, which really sets him apart from many other members on this team. That being said though, there are other members of the team who outclass Ben in many other ways, which is why he's not higher on this list today. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1961's Fantastic Four, or just skip ahead to 2015's Guardians of the Galaxy #1 to see him in action in space. Number 6. Agent Venom. Oh yeah, you heard me right. Flash Thompson, the guy who treated Peter Parker terribly in high school, was at one time a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now obviously he wasn't just a regular old human being sent up into space. By this time he had been bonded to the Venom symbiote for quite some time and was known as Agent Venom, so he was actually a somewhat useful and valuable member of the team. He was placed onto the team by the Avengers to work as an agent between Earth and the rest of the cosmos, and although he was amazed by the vastness of space, he actually managed to handle this role quite well. Flash was so useful on the team because the Venom symbiote has the ability to retain superpowers of anyone it's bonded with, so it already had a ridiculous amount of powers by the time Flash was bonded with it, and went into space. In addition to many of the powers possessed by Spider-Man, it also gave Flash the ability to produce toxins, camouflage, form 2 legs to replace Flash's amputated ones, create weapons out of itself, and just so much more. Through their adventures, the true origin of the symbiote was revealed, and once it was finally healed, Flash became able to tap into its full potential. Check out Flash Thompson as Agent Venom for yourself, starting with Flash's first appearance in 1962's Amazing Fantasy number 15, or skip ahead to 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy Free Comic Book Day. Number 5. Groot. Now, I'll start off this one with something that I didn't know was a thing. Groot actually has a very complicated history in Marvel Comics, as he was originally a villain who came to Earth with the intent of capturing humans to experiment on them. It wasn't until the 2006 crossover event Annihilation Conquest where he was given a redesign into the more heroic character that we all know and love today. And then it would take another 2 years before he would join the Guardians of the Galaxy in 2008's Guardians of the Galaxy #1. Now, for the most part, Groot has been portrayed as comic relief, especially in recent years. But in a fight, trust me, he is a serious threat. Groot has a number number of superhuman qualities that make him a vital member of the team. I mean, as a living tree, he can manipulate plant life and has the ability to grow his limbs to suit his needs. His ability to do this increases his mass whenever necessary, which also increases his durability in the process. This also allows for rapid healing / regrowth whenever he is damaged or honestly feels necessary to separate parts of himself to accomplish a task. It's often hinted that Groot holds himself back a lot and hasn't shown his full abilities at all. A great example of that being in Secret Wars when, as a toothpick, he merges into the World Tree to become a massive figure that stops Dr. Doom. Check out Groot's story for yourself, starting with his very first appearance as King Groot in 1960's Tales of Astonish number 13, or skip ahead to Annihilation Conquest Star-Lord number 1. Number 4. Starhawk. Stakar of the House of Ogard, aka Starhawk, was a human who was raised as an Arcturan who was cursed to re-inhabit his infant body and relive his life over and over and over again. When he did this, he would be reborn with his past knowledge intact, which led to him referring to himself as one who knows, though much of his past memories would manifest in a more precognitive sense rather than just full-blown memories. His powers aren't really fully known, but he is believed to be pretty much immortal, or at least able to live for an unknown period of time. He can also manipulate light into solid forms, fly at light speeds, survive in the vacuum of space, and possesses superhuman strength and durability, and has more knowledge than any living being should have thanks to his undying curse. It's actually been indicated that the character is much stronger than he lets on, as he took on the cosmic-powered Korvac in battle and lived to tell the tale. After his undying curse was finally lifted, this mysterious figure was responsible for forming the first Guardians team and kept the cosmos safe for honestly quite some time. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with his introduction in 1975 Defenders number 27. Number 3. Adam Warlock. With his first appearance going back as far as 1967 with the publication of Fantastic Four number 66, Adam Warlock has quite the extensive history when it comes to Marvel. Since its introduction, Adam has played a pivotal role in many of Marvel's biggest storylines and events, and he has been a member of the Infinity Watch and even possessed the Infinity Gauntlet for a time. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are talking about him and the Guardians of the Galaxy. But before we do that, let's talk powers. In terms of powers, Adam Warlock is very high on the cosmic scale. He has a standard set of superhuman qualities including strength, stamina, speed, agility, and durability. And then additionally, he has energy manipulation and absorption powers, is an expert in the use of magic, and can manipulate matter. He joined the Guardians for a while in Guardians of the Galaxy number 1 in 2008 alongside Star-Lord and the other members of the modern team. As a cosmic being of immense power, he's easily one of the most powerful members of the Guardians of the Galaxy to date. Now if you're not familiar with him, check him out in his very first appearance in Fantastic Four number 66 as him, or skip ahead to 1972's Marvel premiere number 1 to get just a little bit more of a backstory on him. Number 2. Angela. Interestingly enough, this character didn't start off as a Marvel character. Angela was originally created by Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane for Spawn, having first appeared in Spawn number 9 in 1993. She was first picked up by Marvel Comics for an introduction into the Marvel Universe in 2013's Age of Ultron crossover story, and was developed further in the original Sin storyline that took place in the following year. Her backstory was revamped to make her the long-lost daughter of Odin and Freya, making her Thor's older sister. Joining the Guardians of the Galaxy's roster in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy number 9, Angela proved time and time again that she truly was Thor's sister, as she is definitely comparable in terms of power. Angela has both the powers inherent to an Asgardian as well as those possessed by an angel of the 10th realm. These traits make her immortal, give her the ability to fly, and afford her superhuman strength, agility, stamina, speed, reflexes, and endurance. She is also a master of hand-to-hand combat and melee weapon combat, and has demonstrated these abilities in conflict against the likes of Spawn, Thor, and honestly so much more. That being said though, she does have just a little bit of an ego, and that can and has been her downfall just a few times. But all things considered, having a warrior as strong as Thor with a much darker edge on your team is a pretty huge asset. Check her out in her first appearance in the Marvel Universe in 2013's Age of Ultron, number 10. Number 1. Captain Marvel. Now I'm sure we all know who Carol Danvers is, especially in recent years since she has not only appeared in the MCU and the Avengers franchise, but also got her own solo movie. She first appeared in Marvel Superheroes number 13 in 1968, and from that first appearance she has evolved into a number of different character identities, including Ms. Marvel, Binary, Warbird, and Captain Marvel, which is the name she goes by now. If you're not familiar with her powers, let me give you a bit of a rundown. Now like most superheroes, she possesses super strength, stamina, agility, durability, and can fly. But that's not all, because she also possesses vast cosmic awareness, has a slight regenerative healing factor, and can manipulate energy to do pretty much anything she puts her mind to. What's even crazier is that like many of the other characters on this list today, it's also said that she has not shown the full potential of her powers either, meaning she can only get stronger from here, which I can't even fathom. She joined up with the Guardians of the Galaxy alongside Agent Venom in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy Free Comic Book Day, and although her time with them was pretty short, she was a huge asset for the team. Now it was so short because she is a military gal, so she sometimes clashed with her laid back attitude, and also because as a woman who's used to being the leader, she didn't really like playing second fiddle to Star-Lord. Nowadays, Carol sticks to hanging around Earth, but her tenure on the team gave the Guardians some serious firepower, to say the least. Check her out in her first appearance in 1968's Marvel Superheroes number 13.